Welcome to UFHL Now! A close-up look at the ultimate fantasy hockey league. The most realistic fantasy gameplay. High stakes. High reward. Here's your host, the owner of Duckman's domination in the UFHL, and the mighty Mallards of the UFHL, Dean Millard.
Hello there, and welcome to show number 14 of UFHL Now. It is great to be back on the air after having some computer issues. And first of all, I want to apologize to Charisse for the last couple of Fridays not being up to par. I know you say this is something that you really look forward to. So thank you very much for that. And this show is dedicated to you to get your Friday back on track. So to everybody who enjoys this show, thanks for being patient with us. We're going to jam basically 3 weeks worth of shows into this one. We've got a massive UFHL Insider segment with Larry Fisher that we will be getting to very shortly. This show is proudly broadcast on the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network. You can touch base with us on Twitter at UFS Network. You can email us ufsn@uffsports.com, and you can reach me, Ducks Domination, on Twitter. There's the Jersey Duckman's Domination at Ducks Domination on Twitter if you want to get in touch with me. We're going to go through the playoff update. Larry's going to have a deep dive into some of the rosters. We'll show you some of the matchups. We're also going to discuss who the top 5 playoff goal scorers are that are still alive in the NHL and UFHL playoffs. Larry will drop by with a big bag of information on the UHL Insider, and we'll tell you about the Ultimate Roundtable that will be coming your way on Saturday at noon Eastern, right here on UFSN. So let's get into things right now.
You're watching the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network, UFSN, your one-stop fantasy shop. Get in touch on Twitter at UFS Network. Email us, ufsn@uffsports.com.
All right, let's take a look at what has happened in the past week. That's what we do on this show. We go Friday to Friday, and with the games whittling down, there was not a ton as there usually is. A lot of guys are still lighting it up, but they're no longer in the UFHL, which makes everything so unique. So let's take a look at things from Friday to Friday. And Nikita Kucherov marching on for Red Army. 5 assists, 3 shots on goal, a couple of power play points, and 3 hits. That's huge. To get 3 hits from Nikita Kucherov, that might win the final. It's they're not going to need a whole lot, as you're going to see, for Red Army to win this round. It's going to be pretty easy peasy win streak. But maybe in the next round, you get 3 hits in a week from Kucherov, and that's what puts you over the top. We're going to talk about roster depth with Larry a little bit later. And Kucherov isn't a depth guy at all, but getting hits from Kucherov is like getting a couple of goals from a depth guy almost. I remember talking to Jason Strudwick about, just how when he would score a goal, how excited Jaromir Jagr would get when he was playing with the Rangers. And vice versa. If Jagr ever jumped into a scrum and, had Struddy's back or something, it'd be the same thing. Uncle Leo Komarov, 14 penalty minutes, getting it done for the Ice Vikings. 5 hits as well, 4 shots on goal, and a takeaway. But those penalty minutes add up, and that's why you have different kinds of players on your team to fill out those different categories. And Wild Bill with the Gator Chomp. Carlson, a couple assists. He's +3, has a couple of shots and 4 hits for the Gators, who are in an absolute, just a massive dogfight, Gator fight, whatever you want to call it, with Ice Vikings. So let's take a look at the goaltenders then going on right now. There is the Titans' lone player and only hope. Obi-Wan Vasilevsky, you are our only hope. He's 2-1 with 80 saves, just 5 goals against. He's got to go shutout the rest of the way to well, it wouldn't even be that many to get the Titans past, and that would mean Red Army would have to get lit up. Like Carey Price would get lit up, and I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think the Habs are going to win this series, but I don't think Carey Price is going to get lit up the rest of the way. He's made 55 saves, 5 goals against in 2 games. Semyon Varlamov for the Ice Vikings could be a difference maker in that series, depending on what happens. 1-2, 76 saves, 7 goals against. So some goaltenders, the Carey Price even getting lit up, I think Red Army's still going to hold on unless Vasilevsky also starts scoring and hitting. But Varlamov could be a key factor in the Ice Vikings and the Gators series. And then when we look at the goal scorers, the top 5 goal scorers still alive in the playoffs. So you still have to be in the NHL playoffs. You still have to be in the UFHL playoffs. Not talking about zombies here, although the Ice Vikings logo looks like the White Walker guy, the lead guy from Game of Thrones, the Undead. So maybe there is still, maybe it's zombie playoffs. Anyway, the White Walkers, the Ice Vikings, have Brock Nelson with 7 goals. He's leading everybody in the playoffs who is still alive in the UFHL. Of course, Braden Point leading the way with 11 goals. But then you've got Red Army back-to-back, Joel Armia and Nikita Kucherov with 5. Another Ice Viking and Mark Stone, who was the first overall pick in the playoff draft. He chimes in there at number 5, and Tyler Toffoli back with Red Army in at number 5, or in with 5 goals as well. So a 4-way tie for second, and depending on who wins, Red Armies, they're looking. They still have, if Tampa and Montreal wins, they're laughing, whereas the Ice Vikings are looking for an Islanders Vegas finale, and then they have a few good chuckles as well. So lots still to be decided. Could happen this weekend. We will see what's going on there. All right, we cover this league like this because it is the best league. It deserves it, and it has its own UFHL Insider, Larry Fisher. So let's get to our UFHL Insider on UFHL Now.
Time to get the scoop on the UFHL with our insider, Larry Fisher. He's had lines in the water all week long. What will he reel in for us today? Let's dive in and find out what's going on with the UFHL. Now!
Great to bring back in the UFHL Insider to the program once again, Larry Fisher. It's been a while since we were able to chat with the computer almost catching fire there. So, although that would have been a cool viral video if something would have caught on fire during our segment, because the things we talk about are heated topics, so it would be fitting. And sometimes the predictions that you make, Evgeny Malkin, are on fire. So speaking of fire, Larry, this is a hot announcement. We have some big names in the scouting community, and 2 huge names, and 2 guys I really, really respect are joining us.
Yeah, Sam Costantino from Sportsnet and Peter Loubardias from the Calgary Flames broadcast team have joined forces and formed Salu Scouting. So SALU Scouting, obviously SA for Sam and Lou for Peter Loubardias. But great to have them in the fold, 2 very well-known, respected, like you said, broadcasters, but also at heart scouts. Sam Costantino obviously is Sportsnet's top scout and draft analyst. He's sort of Sportsnet's version of Craig Button and Bob McKenzie from TSN. And Peter, obviously, he was the voice of the Memorial Cup for a lot of years. He's always had his roots in junior hockey. He truly enjoys the junior game. I know he's done some scouting for the WHL's Red Deer Rebels over the years. but he's back at the NHL level now. He's the color analyst on Sportsnet Radio Fan 960 for the Calgary Flames, where he had the Calgary Flames play-by-play role for a while, and just really known for an encyclopedia of hockey knowledge, and along with his broadcast duties. But to have Sam and Peter, two established real-world personalities in hockey, but scouts at heart, to have them join forces and become Salu Scouting. A very exciting day for the UFFS and the platform as a whole.
Well, I just had a light bulb idea. If you don't believe me, there is a light bulb right above me. I think we have to have almost like a little bit of a face-off show. You describe Peter Labardius as an encyclopedia. That's how we describe you. Some sort of trivia, junior hockey trivia or some sort of show. I think we have another UFSN idea, because these guys are, and you know what? They're going to bring so much to the UFSN and the UFFS in their broadcast backgrounds and their scouting abilities. Both of these guys were mainstays on the Pipeline Show with Guy Flaming and I, where I first got to know you. We've been bugging Sam since we started the Pipeline Show to get on Twitter. He has said he is not. I hope there's a Salu Scouting Agency Twitter account that has to have his name attached to it, just so Sam is on Twitter. But great guys, a lot of fun, a lot of passion, and a lot more competition for everybody else. Sam's name's already been out there quite a bit in listing players, and I'm sure Peter has had some good influence on that side as well.
Yeah, they're busy again today, but as of this morning, they had 20 prospects already registered. So these guys have hit the ground running with Salu Scouting over the last couple weeks before we did the official announcement here on UFHL Now. But certainly guys that watch a ton of hockey, and obviously the way the open market is right now, it's pretty picked through. But you look at the players they are registering, and some of them are surprising that they were still available, or really when you dig down and look at their stats and see the connections to what real world teams they're going to play for in the future, some Chicago Steel guys like that, Halifax Mooseheads. You see where some of these players are going, and maybe we haven't heard a whole lot about these players, but they're going into good programs. And again, I think, Sam and Peter, they're very connected in the hockey world. I look at the 6'6" Danish defenseman that they registered last night. I had never heard of the guy, but the CHL import draft's right around the corner. He's a 2021 draft eligible for the NHL. He is ranked by Central Scouting, so he's not a total off the radar guy. Other scouts know about him, but I just look at that name and know that the CHL import draft's right around the corner. Sam and Peter are both tapped into that, and knowing the kids that might be coming overseas. So I think they're going to give high-level scouting and Craig Button a good run for their money on the insider knowledge as to which prospects are coming overseas and where these prospects are going to be playing as well, because the development path is so key as much as the talent itself is.
Interesting story about Sam. He was once the visiting clubhouse manager guy for the Toronto Blue Jays. So he also has some great stories. He did play-by-play for the Expos on the Score for a year. So he's got some really good baseball connections. We had him on a baseball podcast as well. I hope these guys do a show together. It'll probably be after 2-hour show, though. 1 hour for each of them to say one thing, because they are both long-winded gentlemen, and I can't wait to get them on maybe the Ultimate Roundtable at some point. I love talking hockey with these guys, love hanging out with them, so really, really glad that they are part of our community. All right, so we have some new scouts, and potentially we could have some new GMs. Well, we do have some new GMs, and another team is also seeking a GM. So let's start with the two hires. One of them stole my prize prodigy away from me.
I was going to say, we start the show off with two guys you know really well, Sam and Peter, and now we're going into a third, George Batchel, who's obviously taken on a bigger role with Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports, but he got into UFFS as a assistant GM with Duckman's Domination and a scout with High Level Scouting, and now George has branched out and landed the general manager job with the Monarchs, and the Monarchs' former GM was Corey Lazar, the brother of NHLer Curtis Lazar, and Corey had a lot of commitments, and it was hard for him to be active on a daily basis. So the Monarchs owner Joe Bowman really wanted to get somebody who's more active on a day-to-day. And we know George is passionate about the UFHL and hockey in general. So I think he's going to be a really good fit for the Monarchs. He takes over a franchise that is ready to win now. They won the Klein Cup as the inaugural playoff champion in 2020, missed the playoffs this year, in part maybe just due to a lack of activity. And I think George is going to come in and really spark that franchise and certainly be more active. But inheriting players like Nikita Kucherov, who obviously missed the entire regular season, but is one of the best players in the playoffs. He gets Victor Hedman, Anthony Cirelli, Alex Killorn, lots of Tampa Bay Lightning there, but also guys like Pierre-Luc Dubois, who's now in Winnipeg and should bounce back next season. So I think that the Monarchs are in good shape with George Batchel. And the Battlehawks obviously lost their GM, Alex LeBlanc, because Alex and his family purchased the Snipers franchise. So that opened up the door there. And one of our prize scouts as well, Mick Portoni from Draft in Europe, has jumped on as the GM of the Battlehawks and brought along an assistant GM, Alessandro Scianci. Sorry, Alessandro, if I didn't get your last name right there, but Mick and Alessandro are going to be running the Battlehawks, and they take over a franchise that in some eyes maybe overachieved a bit this year under Alex. You know, they were ranked around that 25, 26 in the preseason power rankings, ended up making the playoffs as the third seed in the Gretzky division and finished in that 12 to 15 range in the regular season. But Mick and Alessandro will have some work to do there, but they're starting with a nice core group that includes guys like John Tavares, Steven Stamkos, Brent Burns. So there's some star power to build around with the Battlehawks as well. But those are the two franchises that have recently made GM hires, the Monarchs and the Battlehawks, and both seem to be in good hands going forward.
Yeah, Alessandro's a mainstay in the UFLB as well, and he enters some of our free contests, free plug for that. Every Sunday we put out a new contest, so it's just great to see. What I'm really excited about lately is all the different people that are joining this platform and getting involved in different sports. And, you know, not everybody's going to be able to own a team in every sport, but you can be involved in a lot of the different sports. And I really love that. And speaking of getting involved, the Crypto Knights are looking for a GM.
And to segue off what you mentioned there, Dean, and I missed the segue earlier, but Peter and Sam, you know, when I mentioned that once you're registered to be a scout, you can scout any sport. They love golf. They love baseball. They love, Peter said, I'm an all sports guy, even though everybody knows me for what I've accomplished in hockey. And basically my entire professional life from my teenage years has been in the hockey world. He says, I follow all sports and I can't wait to start. Salu Scouting can start scouting other sports as well. And you're right. A lot of people are eager for the new sports launching because they're going to cross over from hockey and be involved in a lot of different fronts. But to focus on the Crypto Knights for a second, Dean, they are seeking a GM. Charisse Schultz, who's the Crypto Knights owner, she loves hockey. She knows her roster quite well. She's good at what she does, but she really wants that, as this platform is scaling and we're getting more and more of these professional fantasy sports, but professional real world people involved, she sees an opportunity to maybe bring on somebody who knows the game better than herself and who can really oversee, again, the day-to-day duties, the setting the lineups and fielding trade offers and just getting into those in-depth trade conversations where she has good hockey knowledge, but maybe not on that level where somebody wants to really pick her brain about a certain player or a certain deal. She's looking for the right fit as a GM. She's kind of had this idea for a while that she'd like to bring on a GM, basically even prior to this past season, but really looking for the right fit. And this is a good opportunity for somebody who's wants to take fantasy hockey, obviously extremely seriously, next level, professional fantasy sports, to take over a roster like the Crypto Knights, who were a playoff contender this season. They finished 17th overall out of 31, now 32 franchises. 5th place in the Lemieux division, but would have actually earned the second wildcard spot in the Allen Conference had it been a normal season where the top 4 in each division didn't automatically make the playoffs. If there was a normal season with the wildcards and crossover, the Crypto Knights would have crossed over because they had more fantasy points than 4th place team, the Stallions, in the Gretzky division. So this would have been a playoff franchise this season in a normal year, and certainly a playoff contender going forward. The roster features players such as Mark Stone, Taylor Hall, Dylan Larkin, Roman Josi, Mark Giordano, Dmitry Orlov, Martin Jones is the goaltender, and they have 9 prospects on the protected list. Some underrated guys there who aren't big names, but could pop in the years to come. Charisse has done a good job identifying some talent for the protected list. So really seeking an active GM to oversee the day-to-day duties and help improve that roster depth, I think, because you hear the names there. There's some top-end talent, but as you go down the roster, the depth drops off. And as you know, Dean, every player matters. You got a 23-man active roster, same as the NHL. Your third and fourth liners, they do contribute fantasy points, and that's the difference sometimes between being 17th place and 10th place or whatever the case may be. So somebody to come in and help the Kryptonites really take a run at a playoff spot and contend in that Lemieux division next season.
Well, that's true. Every team is going to have superstars. Well, okay, we don't have a lot right now. We have some stars, but most every team is going to have those top-end players. It's the depth that is going to win you long term. And we've seen it tried both ways. The Yetis went most of the season with that top heavy, and then they changed GMs and went into a different route. So you can try it different ways. And Illis, we see it in the NHL too, right? So all teams are going to try it different ways. And if your superstars can carry all that weight, fine. But all it takes is one injury, and then you're in a world of hurt, pardon the pun. All right, so we've talked about a lot of opportunities, and, sometimes you have an opportunity, and then you don't, and you really miss it. And that seems to be what's happening with a former owner.
Yeah, 2 former owners, actually. Both Dylan Wheaton from the Blizzard, who sold the Blizzard to Showtime, and obviously did really well on his sale, made, north of 50,000 USD on a $1,500 investment. So did really well financially. But Dylan Wheaton, as soon as he was out of the game, he wanted back in the game and has been trying to get a minority ownership stake in another franchise and potentially a hockey ops position. So whether that's GM, assistant GM, but he wants that position included with an ownership stake. He wants to reinvest all that score coin he got and get back in the game and have a holding asset or be a shareholder in a franchise. Wheaton wants back in after selling the Blizzard, and so does Juha. Sorry, and again, the last names are tricky for me with the Europeans today, but Juha, obviously from Finland, great guy, one of the OGs, an original owner in the UFHL, sold the Snipers to Alex LeBlanc and Alex's family for 35,000 USD. Did really well on his $100 investment. He bought the Snipers in January of 2020 for $100 sold for 35,000 USD. But Juha didn't turn around and cash out his score coin and run off to the bank or whatever, buy a new sports car. He wants to buy back in as well. He wants to be a 10 to 15 to 20%, minority shareholder in a franchise. And also, I think, as you mentioned, Dean, it speaks to missing the gameplay because you can't find this level of professional fantasy sports anywhere else. Once you've been in the UFHL, it's just not the same to go back to your regular league with your buddies on, no matter how much of a deep dynasty league it is, just the overall experience doesn't compare to the UFHL. So I think both Dylan and Juha are looking to get back into the UFHL. And certainly if anybody's looking for a shareholder, they prefer to go that route. But also I think they would entertain offers to get back in on the gameplay side and take on a hockey ops position, whether it's scouting or assistant GM or potentially the Kryptonite, something like that, maybe a GM opportunity as well.
Fascinating. So much going on, and once you get a taste, you just want so much more, and I'm trying to figure out this next story, what's been happening, because we have seen, I want to say for the last couple of months, a bit of a steady sell-off of prospects from Ruby ISS, Harrison Millar's scouting agency, who had, literally every time we go to do tracking the draft, almost one of the Ruby ISS players would come up when we were talking about it because they had so many. But a lot were selling off. And I don't know if Harrison is planning maybe to buy another franchise in something else or, whether he's cashing out, which I hope doesn't happen. But a really huge scouting merger.
Yeah, so all those prospects that were showing up on tracking the draft will now show up under Can West scouting. You mentioned Ruby ISS has sort of been, they were one of the OGs. They had the strongest prospect pool coming out of the initial futures auction last summer. They were the biggest spender there, the biggest investor. Landed guys like Connor Bedard and Matvey Mishkov and Brad Lambert. And those were the 3 big names that were sold off, over the last couple months, like you said, and sort of piecing out that stable, but still had Owen Power and Brant Clark and Braden Yeager and all these top end guys. Had 70 prospects still in the fold with Ruby ISS, and then it came down that they were doing a merger with CanWest Scouting Agency. All 70 prospects would be transferred to CanWest, and that Harrison Millard will have some sort of role going forward with CanWest, but the details aren't entirely out there as far as how that merger is going to work. But as of today, Harrison Millard and Ruby ISS Scouting Agency do not own any players on the UFFS platform, which is such a change, like you said, Dean, because even a couple months ago, that was the premier agency, which just goes to show, within the scouting community, although, yes, you're trying to develop these prospects and get them onto the UFHL, there's a lot of opportunity for scout-to-scout sales, scout-to-scout trade. There's a lot of transactions, more especially since May 1st when the platform launched, but within the scouting community. And this was an opportunity where the other Harrison Fallow, and obviously Curtis Johnson from the Generals has a influence in CanWest Scouting Agency. They saw an opportunity to really bulk their agency up. And CanWest now owns 125 players, Dean. And that is tied for third most on the UFFS platform with Arnie Entz of Pipeline Prospects. They also own 125 prospects, and they're only behind Paul Easton of Easton Scouting Solutions with 144. He's the leader. And Nelson Martins of the Wise Guys Prospects, affiliated with the Godfathers franchise, they have 143. So Nelson and Paul are neck and neck, 144, 143. But CanWest is a big player now in the UFFS scouting community with 125 prospects, equaling Arnie Entz and Pipeline Prospects, tied for third overall.
And honestly, I think when you combine quality with quantity, I think CanWest might be the leader. Listen, I'm really proud of what high-level scouting is. We don't have near the quantity, but when you combine the amount and the quality of players, it's really, really impressive. And they weren't the only kind of scouting staff. This was a bit of a merger, but there was another scouting agency that sold all of their prospects.
Yeah, Justin Anstey, who is JGA Scouting, the tongue twister JGA, but Justin Anstey, he came on actually, Dean, as an affiliated scout, I believe with the Blizzard at first when Dylan Wheaton came on. They're friends, part of the Newfoundland core. There was that Rock Republic group, and obviously the Ice Vikings are Newfoundland based, but Justin Anstey was in sort of that group, and then I think he invested fairly heavily off the start, sold some prospects to those aforementioned franchises, some of his top prospects, and then he just sort of had a small stable of 10 prospects left, and he put it out there that, you know what, I love having score coin. I want to maybe reinvest it. Like I said, with Harrison Millard, the Legends League stuff's coming. I know Harrison's big on MMA, mixed martial arts, as well as baseball and even maybe possibly the NFL. So, and I think, although not nearly at the same level, but I think Justin Anstey the same. He wants to hold some score coin and see where he can evolve, whether he gets back into scouting potentially at a later date or scouts a different sport. I don't think it's the last we've seen of JGA scouting, but as far as hockey goes, they did sell off their 10 prospects, a small stable, to Marcus Borkowski. Again, there's some tough names today, but Marcus Borkowski bought all 10 prospects from JGA Scouting, and Marcus is new to the UFHL and UFFS platform as well. He's actually the assistant GM and affiliated scout for the Snipers. He joined forces with Alex LeBlanc when Alex bought the Snipers back in May. So this kind of gives Marcus a little bit of a boost. He's up to 33 prospects now, thanks to taking on those 10. So Marcus becoming a bit of a player in the scouting world as well.
Good news. More scouts means more competition, but it also means more passion. And just the Telegram chats lately have been so awesome. Whether it's scouting, whether it's the hockey, and we're talking about the playoffs, or the just the ferocious appetites that people in the UFHL chats are having right now. It's just unbelievable. But I have a breaking news. I have a new nickname to be added to Luc Grenier. So I already call him Steinbrenner. Now I'm adding Smokescreen Steinbrenner, because everything Luke says, I don't believe anymore. It's either shtick or it's a smokescreen, because all along he had been saying, I'm not getting back in 2021. I'm not going to be blah, 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 blah. We know he dominated last year's draft. Kudos to him. It was a brilliant strategy. Now he's landed in the top 5. Now he's landed in my pool where I'm swimming in, and he said all along he wasn't. So Smokescreen Steinbrenner is the new addition to his nickname for me.
Yeah, I don't think Luke and Red Army could resist the opportunity to get back in. He loves the bidding wars. He loves getting a chance at Owen Power and bidding first overall. And it came at a steep cost, right? John Carlson's a premier defenseman in the NHL. Will Owen Power ever get to that level? Maybe, but salary cap starting to sneak up on Red Army as well, as it will for a lot of the contending franchises this offseason. But John Carlson was deemed one of the guys that he could offload and recoup an asset. And obviously Assassins were in a good spot. They had 2 of the top 5, 2 picks of the group of 5. They had both the Bentley Jacks and the Blizzard. So they had 2 of the 5 spots bidding on first overall. So they had the luxury of trading one of those spots and still being part of that group of 5. So Red Army swooped in, as Luc Grenier tends to do, saw an opportunity, traded John Carlson, as well as Buffalo goaltending prospect Eric Portillo, in exchange to get into that top 5 bidding at 4th overall with the Bentley Jacks pick. But as it works in the UFHL entry auction, franchises 1 to 5 are grouped together for first overall. So you're right. Luke did say multiple times throughout the season, you don't need to worry about me this year. I'm not that focused on the 2020 or 2021 draft class. I won't be a big player. Well, lo and behold, not only is he bidding on first overall now, Dean, he also acquired picks in the last month to bid at 7th overall and 9th overall. So he could come away with 3 top 10 picks again for Red Army out of this 2021 class. So like you said, I think you have to take everything Luc Grenier and the silent partner say with a grain of salt. But above all else, I just don't think Luke can resist being part of the bidding war and the excitement and the entertainment value that is the entry auction for prospects coming into the UFHL.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild now that we have 5 full bidders as of right now, and who knows what happens with more trades that might happen, because trades are always happening. Even though the Klein Cup playoffs are happening, there have been some deals made.
Yeah, and you don't see as much of this in the NHL, Dean, because normally they don't want to steal the spotlight from the NHL playoffs. Gary Bettman doesn't like that. Save your Jack Eichel trade for after I hand off the Stanley Cup. Although Pierre LeBrun's been saying Jack Eichel might get traded during the playoffs too. Yeah. So knock on wood there, the NHL might follow suit. But there have been a few trades of note involving players that are no longer in the NHL playoffs, because the same rule applies. Once you're no longer in the playoffs, you can be traded in the UFHL. So the Snipers landed Leafs top prospect, their 2020 first rounder, Rodion Amirov, Russian forward with a lot of upside, as well as Stallions 2021 first round pick. And here's one of those trades, Dean, where there was other assets going both ways, including Stallions also received Rasmus Kupari and Robert Bortuzzo. But the key thing here is the score coin that was exchanged from Snipers to Stallions, 4,150 score coins. So essentially Stallions have covered off their entry fee for this upcoming season thanks to this trade. And because you're allowed to include score coin in trades, that's, some of the smaller budget franchises are going to leverage that, trade away a good prospect and maybe your first round pick. And there you are, you're in for another season as far as the entry fee goes. So that was one of the recent trades. A bigger trade or marquee name presently was the Tornadoes. They were at the bottom of the standings. Rob Love down there with Duckman's domination, and the Tornadoes are eager. They want to start trending up in the standings, and they landed Jamie Benn and Drake Batherson, 2 sort of impact wingers, forwards from the Yetis. And the Yetis, again, trying to manage the cap a bit, as well as get younger and get some guys that are maybe have some more franchise term and control. But they acquired Jesse Puljujärvi, Troy Terry, Ryan McLeod, Nolan Foote, and a second-round pick for Batherson and Ben. So another nice blockbuster there. And the third trade we can highlight, the Assassins, who obviously made the big trade to get John Carlson as sort of their horse on the back end. They also acquired Nino Niederreiter from the Outlaws as improving their forward group. So the Assassins are a team that are on the rise for next season, no doubt, and they're still in the bidding for Owen Power and first overall because they had 2 picks there. But to get Nino Niederreiter, they gave up Brett Howden, Battlehawks first round pick this year, and Duckman's worst second round pick this year. So certainly there are franchises that are trying to improve and beat the offseason, beat the rush, and certainly ahead of that expansion draft deadline for protected lists on July 17th. We're going to see a lot of activity, I believe, but some franchises are getting a head start while the Klein Cup playoffs are still playing out.
Yeah, and that includes the Bentley Jacks, who have been very busy as well.
Yeah, Brendan Kopp, the GM of the Bentley Jacks. I've touted him as the busiest GM in the UFHL a few times, but seems like there's a steady stream of I don't know if you want to say not tentative trades because they are trades, but submitted trades that are not going to be announced or approved until during or after the expansion draft. But he's already got moves lined up where I'm going to pick this player and then I'm going to flip. Like I'm going to lock up this player through a trade. So I'm going to trade so-and-so or an asset here and to guarantee that I select this player. And he's already got the next domino in place where after I select this player from that trade in the expansion draft, now I'm going to trade that player, flip that player for another asset. So he's got a number of trades. I believe it's getting close to double digits already, Dean, as far as the side deals going on that won't be announced and won't be public until the expansion draft. So when Duckman's domination are up and Brennan's going to make his pick from Duckman's, he'll say, or somebody will say, oh, there's a trade to announce, and it'll come out at that time during the live event for the expansion draft. But so no names, no spoilers here and now, but certainly the Bentley Jacks are making a lot of moves, and there will be a number of trades announced during the expansion draft. So that's something to look forward to from the Bentley Jacks.
All right, so last weekend we had another meeting, a presentation between UFHL owners and scouts. Then we as owners did some voting. There is change, maybe not as much change as the scouts wanted, but there is change. And I'm, as an owner, I know that there was some unhappiness. I'm really happy about the change that was made, and as an owner, I'm willing to listen after the draft if things don't go the way I think they're going to go, because I think the scouts are going to be happy. But there was a little bit of change made to the draft format or auction format.
Yes. So at least for the final pick of the entry auction, 64th overall, that pick will now be the rolling average of the previous 4 picks. So you won't just get picked. There'll only be one franchise left at 64, obviously. So the way the algorithm had it set up, they would get to pick their prospect at the minimum entry-level contract, $25 USD. Now, that final pick, whoever's left for the franchise, will have to pay the rolling average of picks 60 to 63. So that's the only change. Like I said, it's a change that I think was a positive change. The scouts wanted that one, and it was pretty easy, pretty much unanimous consensus from the owners that it made sense. But the rest of the changes, as far as raising all the minimum bids throughout the second round, or forcing a minimum number of franchises bidding per pick, per draft spot, as well as the rolling average if one franchise does end up with all 5 spots in a grouping, to apply the rolling average there to the previous 4 picks versus just paying the minimum according to the algorithm. I think the franchises, those 3 changes didn't garner enough support because it needed that 2/3 majority of expected votes in order to facilitate a change. And, some of them got, 15, 16, 19. They needed 22 votes. So there was some significant interest from the franchises to go down the road that the scouts were proposing, but just not quite enough to get there. And I think you're right, Dean. I think wait and see how this entry auction plays out, because it's never been done before. This is a brand new format from last season. This is the first time the franchises are bidding on scout-owned prospects. Let's see how this plays out, and then adjust accordingly from there. And I think that was the stance for a lot of franchises, is we haven't seen it play out yet. Let's just wait and see, rather than make changes and adjustments that, we're making changes for something that we're might happen, but we don't know that it's going to happen. Let's let this play out, see how it works, and then we'll revisit at the off-season meetings and potentially implement those 3 changes or more, depending how this auction plays out.
Well, and the thing I look at it is, I think scouts need to be looking long-term. First of all, they can scout in any sport. As a hockey owner, I can go and buy a franchise in any other sport if I want to, but it's not going to be as cheap as listing a player for $20. even the original franchise purse of $200, purchase price of $200, is a lot more than listing that one player for $20. So scouts have a lot more of an advantage than I think they are looking at than just the first round or the algorithms. I mean, selling those players that they buy for $20 on that open market to a franchise gives them a huge advantage. So I think everybody, whether it's owners, scouts, and look at the price of ownership now in franchises, $51,000, $35,000. Who knows what's going to happen in football? I think everybody has to be a little bit patient, let the system go, let the system grow. If you thought you were getting in and be able to cash out right away in 1 year and be, sitting on a beach, I don't think that's the process. We all, as owners, scouts, admins, everybody, we have to be a little bit patient as this thing grows. It's not going to grow overnight, but there is going to be an opportunity for scouts in many different areas.
And I think, Dean, I think you kind of touched on it there, but I think when this entry auction is over, scouts, by and large, on the whole, are going to be very happy with the return on investment. Obviously, the best scouts who made the best bargain buys in that futures auction or found the hidden gems on the open market throughout the course of the season, they're going to make the biggest profits versus maybe the scouts that spent the most on a prospect like Logan Stankoven, who's a great prospect, but maybe wasn't worth what was spent on him. So some of those guys might not get return on investment fully, but I think on the average, overall, the return on investment is going to be very promising for scouts. And you nailed it, Dean. Scouts just have to look at the top of this entry auction. As of today, anyway, 5 different franchises bidding on first overall. That's going to be a huge bidding war. Whoever owns that prospect that gets picked first overall, and there's no guarantee it'll be Owen Power in the UFHL, but that scout's going to be very happy. And then you just look down the list a little bit. Okay, well, who's coming in at second overall? Oh, the Tornadoes. Well, Rob Love has been, a committed spender. He's not afraid to get into a bidding war. Oh, who's coming in at third overall? Oh, the Stingrays and Arlo Scholes. Okay, well, 1, 2, and 3 aren't going cheap. And then, okay, well, all of a sudden at 7, Red Army's back in. At 9, Red Army's back in. I think especially at the top of the entry auction, that first round, you're going to see prospects selling for much higher than they did at the futures auction. There's going to be a lot of profit that's going to drive up the overall scout profit from the entry auction. And I look at what's happening in the scouting community right now. Connor Bedard sold for $7,000 USD. He was $610. Now he's $7,000. He's still 2 years away. Well, if he's $7,000, what is Owen Power at the entry auction? If Matt V. Mishkov is $4,500 and Brad Lambert's 31 something, the starting bid at $500 for first overall is not going to be the end bid when the scouts have kind of set that player value and established sort of player values throughout the last couple months in the scouting community. And certainly the owners, the franchises have taken notice that player values are on the rise. So I think even though some of these starting bids are 500 or 100 or whatever, I don't think that's going to be the sale price. I think there's going to be bidding wars throughout the entry auction. And I think overall, when it's all said and done, scouts are going to walk away very happy with the total return on investment versus what they paid, like I said, open market or futures auction. They're going to be it's going to be a profitable event for the scouts.
Yeah, I would agree as well. All right, I ran through a little bit about some of the top performers in the playoffs and some of the guys that are still left in the playoffs and still alive on different teams. Give us an update on kind of what's going on with the playoffs, and I kind of like what you're going to do here, a little bit of a what-if game.
Yeah, we can start with the what-if game for sure. Is Red Army's smooth sailing right now. They're up by 35 points over the Titans, and the Titans obviously only have one player left, Andre Vasilevsky. Even if Tampa wins 2 more games, there's no way Andre Vasilevsky can catch Red Army by themselves. So Luc Renier's basically got a bye to the Klein Cup final. But what if Luc Renier was up against Rock Republic, who that semifinal, the Orr Division, Division final, the Orr Division final, Rock Republic was leading Titans almost wire to wire. I think Titans got off to a hot start. David Pasternak, Cale Makar, some of those guys had a real big start. But once Rock Republic took the lead, it was kind of back and forth, but Rock Republic was steady leading for 5 or 6 days at that 5 to 10 points ahead up until that final day of the second round when Colorado obviously lost out to Vegas, but Colorado had a strong game, and it was enough from Makar and Devin Taves and those guys to thrust Titans ahead of Rock Republic by 4.4 fantasy points. So Rock Republic eliminated on the final day of the second round. And then you look at what Rock Republic would have carried forward, Dean, and they actually would have had 10 players going on to the third round to the semifinals. And so it would have been Red Army with 11 players against Rock Republic with 10 players. And Red Army, a couple of those players like Alex Beret-Boulet and Ryan Paling, those guys aren't in the lineup. So Rock Republic actually would have had more players. They would have had Blake Coleman and Alex Killorn from Tampa Bay, Jesperi Kotkaniemi from Montreal, Nick Roy from Vegas, and then on defense, they would have had Victor Hedman, David Savard, and Cal Foote from Tampa, Joel Edmondson from Vegas, or from Montreal, and Nick Hague from Vegas. And then also they still had Marc-Andre Fleury in goal. We would have had the head-to-head Marc-Andre Fleury versus Carey Price in goal. So just a great result for the Titans, but very disappointing for the suspense of the UFHL playoffs. And I haven't crunched the numbers, Dean, but I know that it would be, I mean, Red Army's up by 35 points on Titans right now. I think they would be neck and neck, head-to-head with Rock Republic. I think Rock Republic might even be beating Red Army, but it would be very close had Rock Republic hung on that last day of the second round. And the other semifinal, Dean, because that one's kind of anticlimactic with Red Army having 11 players versus just one in Andre Vasilevsky. The other semifinal is a barn burner between the Gators and the Ice Vikings. Essentially, they're 5 versus 5 for players that advance to the third round. Semyon Varlamov has really been the wild card for the Ice Vikings. If the Islanders do well against Tampa, the Ice Vikings have a really good chance of advancing. If the Islanders lose and Semyon Varlamov is taking negative points for losses, I think that almost shifts the power towards the Gators. As we've seen last night, the Gators, for the first time in that matchup through 5 days, have now surpassed, overtaken the Ice Vikings. But we're talking the slimmest of margins, 0.15 fantasy points lead for the Gators. So you're looking at an essentially tied semifinal at this point. So all eyes are on Gators versus Ice Vikings, while Red Army will be awaiting the winner in the Klein Cup final.
Man, some possible, just, you know, that movie Sliding Doors, a few different things happen and how it could be so different. So how does, now that we've seen the actual UFHL playoffs break down and what's happening, and, you know, I guess Andre Vasilevsky could just keep having shutouts and really turn things around and maybe pick up some assists and penalty minutes, but what's happening with the UFHL/NHL playoff pool that we have going? I thought I was doing pretty well and had a chance in the early going. Not so sure anymore.
Yeah, the playoff pool is heating up as well, and I'll jump into that in one sec. But just a couple more scenarios from the Klein Cup playoffs, Dean, that I think are crazy that I forgot to touch on here. But the Gators are actually the only Final Four franchise with a player from each of the NHL's Final Four. They have William Karlsson and Alec Martinez from Vegas, Yanni Gourde from Tampa, and JG Pajot from the Islanders, as well as Corey Perry from Montreal. But we could really be watching right now, Dean, the Klein Cup final, and this impacts the playoff pool as well. But the Klein Cup final could be playing out before our eyes because there could be no players left for one or the other finalists, depending on the matchups in both leagues. So if Ice Vikings defeat the Gators, and it's Ice Vikings versus Red Army in a 1-versus-2 showdown in the final, Ice Vikings would have 0 players left if that Stanley Cup final is Tampa Bay versus Montreal. Ice Vikings would have nobody left coming out of this round. Even if they win this round, no players would advance. On the flip side, if Red Army, if that final is Vegas versus the Islanders, Red Army will have no players advancing either. So we know Red Army's going to the Klein Cup final. They need either Tampa or Montreal to win in the NHL, or they're not going to have any players left if it's Vegas versus the Islanders. So the Gators are actually the one safe team one safe franchise that's going to have players left regardless. And then you look at the Vegas versus Tampa final. That's kind of the consensus matchup. That's what everybody expects is going to happen, is Vegas versus Tampa Bay. The odds are in favor of that matchup. And therefore, we would also see, Dean, the first and second overall picks in the UFHL playoff draft would end up battling it out for the Klein Cup in the 1-versus-2 matchup, because Mark Stone from Vegas was the first overall pick for the Ice Vikings. They also got Riley Smith with their second-round pick, but Nikita Kucherov from Tampa Bay was the second overall pick for the Red Army. And those would be the only players those franchises have left. So if it comes down to Ice Vikings versus Red Army in a 1-versus-2 matchup, you got Mark Stone, Nikita Kucherov, the first and second overall picks, are essentially battling it out for the Klein Cup. So that would be a great storyline. I think all the UFHL fans should be hoping for either a Vegas Tampa Bay or a Montreal Islanders final, so that we do get some competition in the Klein Cup final where both franchises that advance at least have some players left, and it's not a default win by seeing, like we said, the Klein Cup final play out before our eyes right now. The semifinals could obviously impact the final and whether or not franchises have players advancing. But the Gators, again, last point here, Dean, would actually be the favorites. If they upset the Ice Vikings and Vegas gets past Montreal, the Gators would have William Karlsson and Alec Martinez, plus either Yanni Gord or Jean-Gabriel Pageau. Red Army would only have Nikita Kucherov left. So if it's Gators Red Army in the final and Vegas wins this series against Montreal, the Gators will actually be the favorite. But you look at the way the pundits broke it down in the UFHL NHL playoff pool, Dean, 16 of the 20 entrants picked both Ice Vikings and Red Army. So overwhelming favorites, 16-4. Ice Vikings over Gators and Red Army over Titans. Both the underdogs, Gators and Titans, each got 4 picks. In the NHL, much the same. Vegas, as we expected, a big favorite over Montreal. 17 out of 20 picked Vegas, 3 picked Montreal. But Tampa Bay and the Islanders, Dean, this was a very close prediction or matchup. 11 in favor of Tampa and 9 in favor of the Islanders. So almost quite divided there. 11-9 Tampa over the Islanders. 11 in favor of the defending Stanley Cup champions, potential to repeat. And then you look at the leaderboard, and you mentioned, Dean, you were on this leaderboard for a while with Duckmans, but no longer in the top 5. The way it works, actually, the entrant who gets the highest points from the UFHL gets a payout. The entrant who gets the highest points from the NHL gets a payout. And then the top 3 from the combined predictions, NHL and UFHL combined, get payouts. So right now, the UFHL, actually Marcus Borkowski, who's one of the newcomers to the UFHL, not sure how closely he followed it prior to May, but he's the Snipers assistant GM and scout. He's leading the UFHL portion with 34 points. And then Trevor Zimmer, the assassin scout, is leading the NHL portion with 40 points. Overall standings, Red Army, Luc Grenier, Smokescreen Steinbrenner's right there at the top with 66 points, but it's a very close battle. Tied for second are Trevor Zimmer, the Assassin Scout, and Rob Conte of the Godfathers, only 2 points back with 64 points. And then Alex LeBlanc of the Snipers has 62 points, and Aaron Bell and Brandon Kohinski of West Coast Express round out the top 5 with 61 points. So from 5th to 1st, Dean, there's only 5-point difference. This round, the semifinals, every right prediction you get is worth 5 points. So if you get one prediction right that Luc Grenier didn't, you're tied with him right there with that 5-point gap. So this UFHL NHL playoff pool is heating up down the stretch as well.
All right, quickly get us into the pro versus rookie challenge, and then we'll get into insider advice.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously we have the little side bet or little side contest going on as we did last year. Myself and Darren Bates, myself the pro, Darren Bates the rookie. We're doing our own challenge. I'm up by 1 point through the second round. It's 53 points to 52 points. Slight edge over Darren. I wouldn't call that bragging rights. I'm in 10th place. Darren's in 11th place overall out of 20 entrants. I have Vegas in 4, which obviously isn't going to happen. Montreal won a game there. Tampa Bay in 5, could still happen. I have Ice Vikings and Red Army. Darren has Vegas in 5, which could still happen. They're up 2-1. Tampa Bay in 6. Tampa's up 2-1. And then obviously the Ice Vikings and the Titans. So the only difference we have out of the 4 picks that we made was I chose Red Army and Darren took the Titans. So he must have put his picks in before he read the preview that showed Andrei Vasilevsky as the only Titan against 11 Red Army. So Darren will take a little bit of a hit there, and that's why Darren's the rookie.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, let's quickly run through your insider advice. What do you got for today?
So the big one, I think, Dean, is, there's only 4 teams left in the UFHL playoffs. That means 28 of them are in off-season mode. Don't sit back and relax and just watch the playoffs and sit on your hands. It's time to dig out the calculator and start crunching the numbers, because next month, a lot of new contracts are going to be handed out in the NHL, both the restricted free agents and unrestricted free agents. And there's a lot of franchises looking around the league. Several franchises could be in cap trouble when these new contracts start coming out and being announced. So better to be proactive than reactive always, and start making room to avoid going over the cap and then finding yourself in a desperate situation where the rest of the league knows you're $10 million over the cap and you got to get rid of $10 million worth of salary. And why would they give you a good asset for a good player when you can't? If you're over the cap, you get fined at the roster deadline. You have to pay a fine, and your franchise accumulates 0 fantasy points for the entire roster starting the season if you're over the salary cap. So you would be literally in a very difficult spot there where you'd have to almost pick your franchise that your best friend runs and give them your $10 million player in order to get back to cap compliant and be able to accumulate fantasy points. So rather than get in that difficult spot, start offloading some talent now. We talked about Red Army doing it with John Carlson. Red Army has also traded Nick Foligno and has a trade in place for Jonathan Drouin. So they've cut a lot of salary there. Those are for futures. They didn't take back any salary in losing John Carlson, Nick Foligno, and Jonathan Drouin. Obviously, those are blows to the roster. You got to find a way to fill them, but the salary cap, Dean, managing the salary cap is such a big thing in the UFHL, and Red Army's been able to create cap room for their 5 key free agents with pending contracts or extensions. They have Kirill Kaprizov, obviously the likely Calder winner, as well as top defenders Quinn Hughes and Miro Heiskanen, and both their goaltenders, Carter Hart and Igor Shesterkin. Those guys, those 5 players, are going to get big raises over their entry-level contracts. In order to accommodate that, you got to lose guys like John Carlson, Nick Foligno, and Jonathan Drouin. But this isn't just a Red Army problem. There's half the league was tight to the salary cap. As you remember, Dean, I think 15 or 16 franchises were within $3 million of the salary cap. Almost all those franchises have key players that are going to be getting raises. So there's going to be some opportunity for Duckmans and Tornadoes and the Blizzard and some of these teams that are close to the floor to really land some star power down the stretch here. And I think that's the big insider advice for this week. The other kind of tongue-in-cheek, I said to Brennan Kopp, save some suspense for the expansion draft. Like I said, he's almost got double digits in deals already in place. Vegas did do 10 side deals in their expansion draft, Dean. They had 10 side deals done. I think Brennan Kopp's going to get, if I had to take the over or under, I think I'd take the over playing Vegas odds. I'd take the over on Bentley Jacks having more than 10 trades, side deals done between now and the expansion draft on July 21st or 22nd. And then last but not least, the scouts are preparing their final rankings for the 2021 NHL draft. Ed Palumbo from Instat, who's a scout for Fanalytica, but Rob Love will submit Fanalytica's final rankings. But Ed Palumbo was the first to submit his top 64. My personal top 120 are basically done now, Dean. But basically, yeah, we're planning to publish those on July 5th, Monday, July 5th. The deadline for scouts is July 1st, Canada Day. You got to have your top 64, final top 64 for the 2021 NHL draft rankings submitted by then.
A lot of work to do in the offseason for sure. And you know what? The Bentley Jacks would be smart to mimic what Vegas did, because look at Vegas. Every year they have gone deep into the playoffs. And we go deep into the UFHL Insider every week, deep into this league, covering it because it deserves the coverage. Thanks as always, Larry, and we'll chat next week. Or we might not chat next week, actually. You might be on a bit of a vacation. We might have a special guest joining us next week. So we'll keep the lid on that. But if we don't see you, have a great vacation, and we'll talk real soon.
Sounds good, Dean. We'll see you on Sunday for the UFFS podcast with Darren Bates. So we'll be reunited soon enough.
This is UFHL Now with Dean Millard. Get in the game, where you own the game.
All right, that's going to wrap up a very busy edition of UFHL Now, but that's what happens when you miss a couple of weeks. You got to jam everything in. So we cover this league the way we do because it deserves the coverage. It's the best fantasy league that is out there, and it deserves it. And it's only going to be growing and growing and growing with every other awesome thing that we have going here on the platform. By the way, we have some new shows coming your way. You can find them all at Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network YouTube channel. But we've got the Ultimate Roundtable coming your way on Saturday. It is going to be a lot of fun. We have the representatives, GMs from The Godfathers, Kamikaze, Elite Assassins, and The Outlaws. It's going to be excellent. Noon Eastern, right here on UFSN. And then we have the UFFS podcast this Sunday as well. Nick Lewis scheduled to be the guest on that one. That's going to be awesome. The stuff they have going with AO Sports is brilliant. So every second Sunday, we bring you the UFFS podcast. 2 Minute Tuesday with Darren Bates. Tracking the Draft with myself and Craig Button on Wednesdays. Full Count Fantasy Baseball comes your way live at noon Eastern on Thursdays. That's live streaming on UFSN. This show every Fridays. Tried to get it out at 6 p.m. Eastern. And then the Ultimate Round Table coming your way on Saturday. So much great stuff going on here in this community. And that's going to wrap things up for us on this show. Want to remind you that the UFAFL franchise auctions take place live in Vegas in July. That is going to be so cool. Live franchise auctions in July for the UFAFL. The UFLB auctions will come your way in October. Franchise auctions during the World Series, and a whole lot more in between with basketball, golf, combat sports, so much more going on and more to come. So get your score coins ready. Start saving up if you want to buy a franchise. Big thanks to Larry Fisher for joining me on the program today as our UFHL Insider. Thank you to you, the viewer. Enjoy your playoffs, whether it's the Klein Cup or the Stanley Cup this weekend, and get some free vitamin D that's going on out there. I'm Dean Millard. Have a great week in fantasy.
UFHL Now is produced by DM Productions. To get in touch, head to www.podcastalley.ca.